I am going to talk about the relationship between Rivaldo and Luis Vandal, as I always do for me. In my personal opinion, I know that many of you who have lived through this period, I know that many of you have seen it here because you will not agree with me. But I am totally convinced of what I'm saying. I already said it at the time when I was in the rival of sitting on the bench at Barca, which would happen in the end. It happened that way, not because I am divine, made it very clear that Barca were getting into a field. Very dangerous. And the worst of all is that almost 20 years have passed since that, and things seem not to be changing completely. No, I mean, it seems that they are not changing at all, because we continue what the fan is, putting ourselves on the side of the stars, putting ourselves on the side of the ego of certain footballers who end up doing a lot of damage to the club. Rivaldo arrived at Barca in the 97-98 season summer in the 27. After Ronaldo's departure in the meantime, he left 4 billion pesetas, which Barca invested in signing Rivaldo, who had. Precisely that clause with Deportivo de La Coruña was already at that time. Sorry. One of the most important players. Obviously, Ronaldo was on another level. He was a unique thing, but underneath, on a more earthly level, of course, Rivaldo was, if not the best, one of the best. He arrived at Barca because he signed him, according to what is said, Sarah Ferrer. Sarah Ferrer decided to bet on his signing when Van Gaal needed a player for the forward line, and there was talk of signing Denilson, a player who was clearly an extreme skilled man, who had enormous one-on-one ability. He was close to being signed by Barca, but finally there were problems with his club, and in the end, the operation was not carried out. Barca ended up signing Rivaldo, who is a clearly playmaker player. He was I hired a three-quarter central zone player to have all the freedom in the world, and Barca placed him in the position of winger because of Van Gaal. He didn't want it, and specifically asked for a winger. They brought him a rival who could act as a winger, and effectively, he acted as a winger in the 97-98 season and 98-99 in the 99-2000 season. Louis van Gaal's 3 seasons, he acted as a winger on the left wing. And what were the results? The results were fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So much so that rivaled, if not I'm wrong, in his first season at Barca, he scored 4 goals and gave 15 assists, and after this first season, he managed to win the Ballon d'Or, playing as a winger. Playing as a winger. I want to repeat and emphasize this playing as a winger within the same 4-3-3 that we see today. That yes, with different roles. That is, there was a line of 4, 1 player in front, 2 interior players, and a line of 3. Yes, there were before. The roles, as I said, were different, because on the right a classic winger played. On the left, also as an interior player, it is the mere role of 2 organizers, but rather of 2 arrivals with great defensive work. In short, there were clear tactical differences compared to today. In fact, the interiors used to be Luis Enrique and Cocu, the powers that have nothing to do with, for example, Xavi, Iniesta, and this type of footballers. But well, we continue talking about Rivaldo and how from that first season the media worked to dynamite the relationship between Rivaldo and Van Gaal. From the beginning, the media did not like him because of certain very rude gestures or a very tone of voice, such and good, and his extreme sincerity is like that. If you are sincere because it turns out that you are not liked, what must be done in this society to be liked? It is seen that you have to lie, and well, Van Gaal did not want to be. So he had problems from the beginning. At the beginning, rivals often failed to shine. It is true that, for example, Van Gaal tried at the beginning to put rivals in the central zone. This must be highlighted at the beginning. The bench did not start with a 4-3-3, but with other 3-4-3-4 type schemes. 2-3-1, and rival played in the central zone. But there was no tactical balance. Gaal couldn't get the most out of the team and started betting on 433. And Barca won the league, won the cup the first time, went very well, season. The second season, quite well, too. And, as I say, rivalry, because things went well for him, because Barca did well as a winger. He sometimes contributed overflow. He contributed goal arrival. Many assists, a lot of danger. True, it is totally true that he did not shine at the level he achieved as a playmaker. For example, season 96-97 in the sports of La Coruña with the deceased, if I'm not mistaken, Carlos Alberto Silva, who was the coach he had there and who made him bring out his entire repertoire. Well, with that coach, within a 4-2-3-1, like playmaker freely took out his entire repertoire, and it was the best that someone with incredible plays is impressive. And that is why many media outlets existed that Rival 2 was being wasted on the wing. They did not care because of the numbers. They insisted that he was being wasted and did not shine as much, and Rival believed it. So Rival believed it is normal. I can understand that he only believes and has every right to demand what he wants. But it happens that the team was working well. The Barca was performing well with him. Playing on the left, he was also performing well, and Barca was doing well. So if you are a group player, if you are a player that works for the team, the normal thing is that you put that to your own whims. Because within, I'm very sorry about that. 433. But there was no position for Rivaldo. If you put him in the central zone, you had to remove Patrick Kluivert to put Rivaldo doing a function that is not his. Not his. The function of the 9 of that 433 did not even fit remotely with rival needs. On the right wing, we are talking about removing Figo. Or it is impossible as an interior. It would be removing Coco from Luis Enrique to put a player who is a midfielder, who does not defend. It does not make sense. Therefore, he wanted Rivaldo. What he wanted was for Van Gaal. The entire scheme of the team will change so that he will shine. This is the summary and the real situation of what happened with Rivaldo and Van Gaal at Barca. Van Gaal did what he could. He supported that locker room as best he could. The first season, I say, it went well for them. They managed to win. Titles the second season too, but in the third season, after the first 2 seasons where the footballers, let's say, that they put up with it and put up with things, because the rival itself, in later statements, when they were no longer there, the Barca said it, I felt at my best moment. I felt like a star. And I stood up to him very well, to stand up to him. Tell us what happened. Then, I'm going to tell it. After the third season in which Barca, Van Gaal has to face this thing that one day takes on rivals, and he stands up and says that he won't play anymore if he doesn't put him in the central zone. It's a game that, if I'm not mistaken, Barca won in a big way playing with a rival on the bench because of that problem that there was. But from there, things start to appear. Suspicious things, like a beating by Mallorca in the Camp Nou, a victory by Rayo Vallecano, defeats by Barca in Oviedo against a team that was fighting not to be relegated in short, absurd defeats, in games that if Barca had won, they would have won the league with complete tranquility. And yet, he let that league slip away. He let a cup slip away in which he reached the semi-finals, and he also let slip a Champions in which they are in the semi-finals against Valencia. A season that aimed to be impressive, incredible, ended up being a real nonsense. And all in the middle of this sea of completely incredible issues. Let's say it this way. Incredible. They got Van Gaal to leave. Of course, he didn't gain anything for the team. He resigned, Núñez resigned, Van Gaal, and who came? Well, I saw new Sparta. What was the project? Coach Sarah Ferrer, leader of the rival team with a 4-2-3-1 scheme, where of course Rivaldo had his ideal position, hooking behind the striker and in front of the double pivot. How well they were going to compete against them? Very good numbers. They made very good plays. It stood out a lot that this went for Barca. I need to say it. I need to say how Barca did after that great wonder that happened, because Barca listened to the stars. It was fatal. He did not win any title this season. He did not win any title the following season, with a res H, the following season. 2002, 2003, they had to bring back Van Gaal when the squad was already completely destroyed and the economy was completely destroyed. There was no money to give Van Gaal signings, and the little money he had spent was used to sign Riquelme, even though Van Gaal didn't want him. And it turns out that even Gaspar blames Van Gaal for not having taken advantage of not having wanted Ronaldo, who didn't want him. That's why he didn't want him. But how is Ronaldo going to come to Barca before Madrid at that time? Man, how are you going to sign Ronaldo with what he earned and with the economy that Barca had? But whoever believes this, Blanca did poorly in that second stage. It was not even enough. I think it was in the month of January, after losing in Vigo against Celta, who was dismissed. He came to Radomir Antic and did an excellent job. We must thank him very much. Antic, thank you very much. He is a coach who, well, came out through the wrong door. No, not because he came out the bad way, but because he was there for a short time, and it was normal that the door would bet on a new project, but before that, he did an impressive job in the short time he was there. But, well, I'm going back to Rivaldo and Van Gaal, and I want to make it clear. I'm going to conclude. I just want to make it clear that for the whims of a player, and even if it sounds bad, even if it sounds offensive, of course, I am very grateful for all the good things that Rivaldo gave to Barca. And of course, I am not blind. I know that he is one of the best footballers I have seen in my life. But what about me? It's worth it that he is one of the best footballers I have ever seen in my life. If he then doesn't care about the rest of the team, in the middle of a season, he asked to modify a scheme and a team that worked to play where he wanted. You are going to seriously agree to the whims of a star if you give in to giving him what he wants, the position he wants, if you give in to bringing his friends to play with him. If you three, the coach of the extreme, is such a coach, then you no longer have a sports model. You have nothing to a guy that's great. You depend on him. I'm going to sign this star, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make him happy. You know what? That sounds like to me. That sounds like what happened in the schoolyards. He was the guy who brought the ball, and he made the teams, and I make the team that the ball is in mine. But, man, this is a joke, my friends. I will always remember that Barca 0, Real Madrid, 2 semi-finals of champions. Season 2001-2002 in Coach's research, a match that he went to see, knowing that Barca was going to lose. How sad I am. I grew up with Cruyffism, watching Barca win and get beaten. And suddenly you get there knowing that you are going to lose against a team that wasn't that great either. No matter how much hype they gave it, it was a cluster of stars. But collectively, it didn't work that well at all. And yet, well, Real Madrid won 0-2, then they tied 11 there at the Bernabeu and managed to win that Champions League against a Barca that they took to the semi-finals, making it very clear the level that there was in Europe at that time, because for that Barca to reach the semi-finals, and another makes it clear that Barca was a band, but very important. Not because it did not have good players like Frank de Burke or Q, and at the back it was a disaster. It was a team without a model. The sports model is everything. Here, I understand perfectly that you are making a joke. 9, the next sports model. I know I say it a lot, but it is not so much about it being a crisis sports model. This is about, for example, it being a sports model. Antonio Conte, that is, your chips. Antonio contained bets on Antonio Conte. You give Antonio several years with your chips to Jose Mourinho, and you give several years to Jose Mourinho, and he rules, and he is the one who decides who comes in and who goes out in a player who doubts me. Now I have the whim, and I'm going to play as a forward. Now I want to play on the left wing. Where are you going? So what happens? There are no more important players on the market to be subject to the will of a 1308 only player. And there is another important thing, and now I'm going to Neymar. If I'm going to Neymar, in the case of Neymar, one of the problems, and in the case of Rivaldo, also one of the problems is not seeing him coming. He has to. If there is contact from the sports management, there must be someone who comes down and nips in the bud everything that is going wrong there. If you see a player who tries to turn the locker room against the coach or put the locker room in a situation of superiority with the coach, where the coach no longer has power and now he no longer knows what to do because the players have taken over, as for example happened in 2016-2017 with Luis Enrique. At that time, there has to be someone from the sports management who sees that and puts up a notice or at least tells this guy in the summer what he wants. Let's take away from here what Guardiola did in a very fine way. He let the Tourés, the Ibrahimovics, Samuel Eto'o, or whoever it was, he let us out, and of course he tried to ensure that the ego of those footballers did not infect others, so that Barca progressively. Well, he has gotten into a dynamic that is not entirely positive. But as I say, I comment. This story has already ended the video, making it clear that its objective is to highlight how a single player and a star can destroy the present future in the short-medium term and long term of a sporting and economically club. No matter how much it is rivaled, no matter how much it is Ronaldo, Messi, and Neymar, nothing is above the team. At least that is how I see it, and I will continue to insist on this as long as Barca continues to be in danger due to attitudes diverse that since. Therefore, they should not be tolerated if we want Barca to be successful. Sorry, sustainable successes over time. I'll just leave it here, and of course, see you in future videos. Greetings.